Welcome to the Lab Rat Foiler podcast. My name is Dan, and today we have Ewan Jaspan with us, the Kite Designer for Naish. How are you, Ewan?
Great. Good to be on here. Can't believe we're podcasting.
I know it's going to be a little weird. I've known Ewan for, I don't know, maybe 10 years now or something like that, and followed his progression from, being a pro kite surfer and having super success in the kite boarding scene to now this new role at a mega reputable brand like Naish. So before we get into parawinging, which we will, let's talk a little bit about your journey in sports. I really like to give the audience a background on what you're bringing into parawinging and your views on parawinging based on your background. So tell us a little bit about your sports journey, starting in St. Kilda as a Grom, moving then to the pro kiteboarding scene, and now as a kite designer for Naish.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. Obviously, every time I feel like I talk about this, having to think back further and further. But yeah, I started, well, as a kid, I was always interested in little stunt kites and stuff. And then I moved from Scotland to Australia when I was 10, and shortly after got into kind of like power kites on the beach, which are basically Parawings, anyway. Um, and so yeah, I started with them and did about a year of. I wanted to get into like kiting on the water, and they said I was too small. This was like 2005, and then so I started, yeah, power kites on the beach, some like pedal foil kites with handles and all that, and
Classic.
yeah, learnt how to jump and do back rolls and double back rolls and front rolls and all that on the beach, and got pretty good kite handling. And then when I was about 12, 13, kind of managed to get on the water. And yeah, we lived right across the road from the main kite beach in Melbourne, St Kilda, and that's kind of been my home spot ever since. And yeah, it's a great place to learn. There's a huge community there and a
Mm.
lot of people to help push the level, especially at that time. There was, at the time when everyone was into freestyle kiteboarding and everyone was trying to unhook and everyone was pushing it, and that was the thing. So it's what I always wanted to do, and just kind of did the classic build through the ranks, state competitions, state titles, national titles, some international comps. I've been on Naish since I was about 14 or so.
A
And
lifetime.
so, yeah, a long time. I'm 31 now. Yeah, then when I finished school when I was 17, went on the world tour and did a few years of that, and then had a couple of years injured off the world tour, and then went back.
Mm.
Kind of before that, I wasn't really doing that good on the world tour, and I was just doing it as like, finish school, couple of gap years before university kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was on the Nash international team, and they were supporting me to do the whole thing, but never had like the expectation that this is where it would all lead to.
Mm.
And then when I came back from my injury, I was super motivated, kind of got into the park riding scene. That was like the big hot thing at that point, like 2014, 2015 kind of thing. It was really taking off. Those big competitions, lots of prize money, lots of, media, and the riders were all they were like the big riders in the sport, the Aarons, the Sam Lights, the Brandon
Hmm.
Scheid, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I got into, kind of took my riding there and pushed the freestyle. And after my injuries, kind of came back and yeah, then got some success. Before that, I was top 10 kind of thing. And after, I got pretty motivated and yeah, had quite a few good years doing the pro kiter thing.
Yeah.
And eventually, every pro kiteboarding career has its expiry date. And I kind of didn't want to get to that expiry date and then think what's next. Um,
Hmm.
'Cause I don't know, I didn't really I did a little bit of uni, but didn't finish. And people warn you, you
Hmm.
don't want to be a pro athlete washed up and nowhere to go. So I kind of started wangling my way into testing for Naish. And I'd always been super interested in trimming kites and tuning kites and the
Hmm.
gear and that kind of aspect of things. Flown kites my whole life. Definitely always been super interested in that. And basically, yeah, just spent a couple of years getting more involved in testing with the previous kite designers at Naish, learning a bunch. and eventually moved to the US just after COVID. It was kind of a weird situation that I almost had to move. I had been going to the US a bunch, and eventually the ESTA visa was not enough, and I needed to sort out a proper visa. So I got
Mhm.
employed instead of as a team rider. I became employed by Naish, which meant in turn to be employed, I had to, do a bit more of a job and be really involved in testing and demos and visiting shops and being involved in the product a lot more. One thing led to the next. I was pretty heavily involved in the kite design stuff, and our kite designer at the time was really busy with a few other projects, and I started helping him with the files and helping him finish things and helping with direction. And yeah, then got the opportunity to kind of be the full-time kite designer about 2.5 years ago now. And
Nice.
that's quick story, I guess, of where we are now.
Yeah, that's sick, man. I follow that journey, and every summer you'd come back with something new, and you would come back with some gear that we would either inherit from you or try and test. And we always loved having you around during summer, and still do, sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes enjoy, or sometimes I'm back in summer.
and then I remember like one summer you brought back a kite foil, and I think we were all kind of stunned. We didn't really understand it. It's like, why are you starting to kite foil coming from this hardcore wake style rider background? What led you into starting, kite foiling and enjoying that discipline?
Yeah, it's crazy to think back like how long I've been foiling for now and how long foiling's kind of been around. And it did really, the whole foiling in this parawinging, water sports, SUP downwinding, all that, it all came from kite foiling. Kite foiling
Hmm.
really was the catalyst to move it from this weird thing that Laird Hamilton did in boots at Jaws to like, or
Crazy
maybe an
stuff.
air chair behind a boat where they're sitting on a milk crate. Um, it was
Sending
like
double
kind of this,
backflips.
yeah,
It's like,
kind of this
fuck.
weird thing that you saw with the big stainless steel foils to all of a sudden it was like a thing. And I think
Mm.
we were definitely one of the first brands in on that. Nash definitely had a lot of innovations in foils first. You saw Kai Laney on the downwind sat for the first time on a Nash.
Hmm.
But yeah, brought back the kite foil, and it was just something totally different to, as you say, from the kind of hardcore freestyle, wake style, extreme, like really hard on the body, definitely a very different thing. It was really nice to have this different outlet that made also the really bad conditions really fun.
Hmm.
And just, you know, just really had a great time with it in summer. It's those light days where we'd all be hanging around on the beach, waiting for some wind, waiting for those 18-knot sea breezes that just frustrate you. And then with
Yeah.
the kite foil, you would just always have a good time. And it's this totally new feeling that was amazing that like just yeah, got me. And at first it was funny, my first kite foil I got, I had foot straps, and um, all I was doing, I was riding a torch like a high
Yeah.
performance
Oh
sea
God.
kite and trying KGBs and back moves, and like I was
Yep.
like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do with this thing, but
It's
now
coming
I can do pretty,
naturally.
yeah. And then you figure out how to turn it properly and have that
Mhm.
feeling of glide and turn. And the first foils were like just dinner plates basically that like they were pretty easy to ride, honestly. Like I'd be really interested to go back and ride one now.
Oh
But
God. What were they called? The thruster? Was it the thruster?
yeah, the thrust was our second one. The first one we got like a really early one that was literally a dinner plate. And then the thrust was the first one that Nash fully designed, the Thrust KS1, I think it was called. And the Malolo, I think it was called that. I might have mispronounced that. But yeah, they were the first ones, and I think the thrust actually was really good. I actually rode that one not long ago,
Mm.
and it was still good. Fast foil, kind of a bit unstable, but fast and fun, and a pretty good foil. And then since then, the progression's just been crazy into all the different types of foiling, and
Yeah.
I've kind of taken to loving all of them. I mean, got it was a period where I was super into prone foiling, um,
Hmm.
especially
I
through
remember that
COVID.
summer.
Yeah, and period where I was super into kitefall racing for about a year. which is like a completely different sport from every other aspect of foiling. It's
Yeah.
nuts. It's like you're just going faster than anything. You load it up to another level. The crashes are just like nothing you've ever had before. But that's all foil experience, and yeah, now the latest one, got
Now
Parawing,
the latest one.
which is really like unlocking some things. Like each
Mm.
foiling discipline that comes out just unlocks something new, which is it's
Yeah.
sick. It's always like that's the one thing that's really attracted me to foiling and spent so much time foiling the last few years is just always something new and exciting, and you're always just having these moments of like losing your mind kind of thing.
Yeah. First
Like
first
freestyle
times on
kiting
yeah.
is such a different experience. It's like a process of like
Mm.
cracking and breaking down a trick and beating yourself up until you get it. And you're not often like enjoying like out there just being like, this is amazing kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
like really enjoying the whole process of it and the learning and the satisfaction of when you finally get a trick. You're like, those last 6 months of beating myself up, like you get that satisfactory feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas foiling, I get sessions where I'm downwinding now and I'm just yelling. I'm just literally just like, I'm swelling, like this is amazing.
That's so good,
And
man.
you
It is
just you
that
just don't
feeling
get
that
that. You're
draws us
like,
to it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what we
like it's
want, man.
just in the moment, like this is like I've been snowboarding a bunch lately, and it's crazy like how snowboarding and powder is so amazing as well. But you get
Mm.
like you get 1 or 2 runs at the resorts. I'm in Hood River in the northwest at the moment, and it's middle of winter, so that's my outlet right now. But you get 2 runs and it's tracked out, and then it's kind
Yeah.
of just done. Whereas foiling, it's like 24 hours a day. If it's windy, there's swell. Like
You could do
it's
something.
non-stop. We
Yeah.
were talking. Imagine if you go to the spot and after 2 runs, all the swell's been used up. It would be
Oh
such a weird.
God. It would be,
Like it
yeah.
doesn't happen foiling. Like you can just ride all day and get this amazing feeling of carving powder. It's
Mm.
like a super similar feeling, and all day. Like you just every day of the year, it's like some type of foiling you can do, and it's
Yeah.
all really good. So
Yeah. I think
I
that,
think
that
that's the best thing.
the feeling of keeping it fresh, I think, is really why I think foiling is just making people lose their marbles right now, because
Yeah.
the vibe is good. Like you said, there is endless, space and conditions for everyone to enjoy. There's no competitiveness in terms of this, we all have to perform in the same spot and one wave or whatever. And then now with parawinging, you're telling us that it's unlocking some new things that other foiling disciplines haven't been able to touch on. What do you think those things are for parawinging that are so unique?
I mean, so I've been winging for quite a while as well, since
Mm.
near the beginning. I would say I was a little hesitant at first.
You
I
were
think
very reluctant. Let's
yeah,
let's be honest here. Both you and
I was
we were
maybe,
like,
yeah, feeling a bit too cool for it or something. I don't know what it was, but
mm,
I do remember right at the start, winging had this kind of thing that it was like, surely not. Like everyone's
yeah.
like, there's no way this is going to be a
I
thing.
remember texting you like, "Is this a thing?" And you're like, "It's a thing. It's here. It's going to stay." And I'm like, "Oh God!" But we love it
Yeah,
now.
it really had that. It's weird how it changed. Like so many people were ripping on it for the first 6 months, and then 6 months later, everyone was frothing like all about it. But it was really like a slow start for me on the winging. I've definitely done it since like the first wing that Nash brought. I think Nash brought out the first production wing, and yeah, I've been winging since then. But the whole thing was with winging was what I like the most is riding the swell, riding the waves, doing turns. I've never really been into the freestyle thing. I have my
Yeah,
kiting for that.
yeah,
And then leading into Parawing, the whole thing with supping, I was reluctant with that because I was like, oh, you just got to ride such a big board and such a big foil.
yeah,
And like I can rip way harder on my little foil winging on my little wingboard. So I was pretty reluctant with that for a bit because I didn't want to lose my maneuverability of such a fast foil and a small board. And then eventually the SUPs kind of got a lot narrower, and technique. People learned things about technique, and then the last 2 years or so, I've been SUP foiling downwind quite a bit, and really loving that. Like
It's sick.
Honestly, I've kind of stopped winging the last 2 years because
Mm,
of that. Hood River is an amazing place to shuttle upwind and downwind as well. So like you get a lot more. It's definitely a lot more accessible than SUP foiling in some places.
hmm
But then I was loving that with the narrow boards and smaller. I'm riding the same foil, like an 840 square centimeter foil for supping mostly.
hmm
And then the one thing with supping though, the drawback is like the board is long. It's not like a hindrance, but you could for sure rip on something smaller better.
When you come from a downwind board and you chuck, a 5.6 back into your foot, you're like,
Yeah,
okay, this is what I want to be
yeah.
riding.
And now Parawinging is like it is it's the best of everything for downwinding and
Mm,
riding swell. You've got the ability to go upwind. You don't need to shuttle. You've got the ability to ride a small foil and the ability to ride a small board and have nothing in your hands, which is the whole
yeah.
downside of winging. So it's like everything has come together and it's
hmm
everyone's now asking, is this the next thing? And it's like, for sure. There's no doubt that this is the next thing. There's, the gear is getting to the point now where it's, rivaling wings in terms of usability. It's getting close. I'm sure in a year or two they're going to be
Yeah.
insanely better. I mean, the first
Dude,
wings were
the first
like,
wings, remember
yeah,
just the stability, the upwind capability of them compared to what we
yeah,
have now with,
yeah,
Alula material and all that stuff. Like, I can't even
yeah.
imagine parawinging.
So that's all going to get sorted out in the next year or two. Where like
Mm,
now, of course, like you can go upwind pretty good on them. They're getting there, but for like the possibilities in the design, once the competition starts all coming together, that they're
yeah.
gonna get really good, and they're gonna be what everyone wants to use. I can't see why you wouldn't use a
Yeah.
Parawing for most things. Obviously, freestyle. You've seen some guys doing freestyle on them, but it does seem for now the wing freestyle makes more sense and works better.
hmm
But most other disciplines, except maybe a beginner, I would say it seems like you would benefit from the efficiency of a power wing. Like you look at racing, for example, like the top
Yeah.
guys in kite fall racing are way quicker on ram air kites than they
hmm
are on leading edge inflatable kites. So the efficiency is going to be there. The the stowability is just, I mean, the best thing about the whole
Yeah.
thing. That's why you power wing.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, it's really just like putting all the best things of everything together, really.
What was the reaction at Nash when they realized that they would have to build a Parawing for 2025? Was it in the books? Was it like you knew, like after September when the BRM launched around September? Did Nash say, "All right, we got to get onto it"? Took a few months. How was
Yeah,
that
I
reaction?
mean, obviously being on Maui, you see everything very early.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we saw the Sam had the 501 first, I
Pocket
think,
wing.
which was basically just a parachute that catches wind and you can get
Mm.
up and downwind on it. That was the whole point, was for downwinding. They started to be able to kind of hold ground, and then that's when they were holding ground, they're like, oh, if that thing can go upwind, like we're on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we started development around then
hmm
because there was some of the crew, myself included, who were like, I hadn't even done it at that point, but I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But we didn't have one yet. And, the being at Nash, the other brands aren't just going to lend you one. So we had to like obviously make one first. And then the BRM comes out and it's going upwind and you see those videos and we're like full steam ahead, like this thing is on.
Nice.
But we need to make it better. Like we're like, okay, you can't bring out one that's not as good as that. It's got to be better. We knew the
hmm
things that we wanted to fix. I'm sure other brands also have seen that and know the things they want to fix. But basically, our Parawing designer Matt,
hmm
he's a super high level paraglider, competitive paraglider, super into all that
Nice.
design. He's set multiple like state records in Washington state in the US for paragliding, and
Sick.
so he's really into that, and he's taken on the project, working with the rest of the team, obviously, for feedback and
hmm
direction and all that help. But he's kind of been the power behind it, and we've come out with a really great product. It's yeah, obviously about to launch any
hmm
any moment now. I think around when this will this will launch with it,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I'll try to sync it
Um,
up.
yeah, it's called the Morph. Um,
I like
so
that name.
yeah,
Where did that name come from? The Morph.
kind of like any name, it's, you want it to be related. You go through the whole process of naming something so hard. Like
At
it's,
least it's not a dick reference. Let's keep it honest, because all the other ones are like the Roger, the D Wing. It's all like these
I hadn't
phallic
thought of it that
names.
way.
Oh, dude, like everyone's banting about it now. It's all like,
Oh
what
yeah,
what are these with Parawingers? They're all talking about,
yeah,
phallic stuff. Anyway, the morph, where did it come from?
yeah. Just going through names, people throwing out names, saying this one's cool, this one's not cool, or someone likes one, and it's always like a whole office kind of debate,
Yeah.
I guess, with those things. But it makes sense to what it is. It's a cool name. It's not like a cheesy, cringy name or whatever. And yeah, that's
I
that's
like the
pretty much
idea
it.
of, one, allowing it to be very transformable. Like you don't know what it's going to be in 5 years' time, so it will morph, but also just, physically how it morphs in use. I think
Exactly.
that's, yeah,
That's
makes total
that's pretty
sense.
much it. Yeah.
So what's the culture like in Nash at the moment? Like under the new management, obviously, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, Robbie sold the company. Is he still involved? Like, is he still,
Yeah. So starter 23, Robbie sold the company, so just over 2 years ago.
yeah.
He's still definitely involved. But basically, for those who don't know, it was sold to Kuba Sports, which have been the long time Nash importers in Europe. So long history with Nash, people very involved with the brand, people who love the brand. So that was very important for Robbie to, um, move the company on to someone that's passionate about the company and will hold the heritage and give it the love and respect it needs or deserves more.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's definitely been a big transition though, moving from the brand being entirely based in Maui
Hmm.
to being spread out across the world, which is, I think a great thing as well, having a broad range of ideas and thoughts and just being able to have the perspective of the European market, of the
Yeah.
American market, of we have people in South Africa,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean Hood River and Maui, which are both quite different scenes as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's been great. It's a lot of working on different time zones and stuff because we have teams everywhere. But in general, it's definitely been learning all that stuff. But now it's really all coming together. We're very product focused at the moment, putting a lot of effort into R&D development,
Hmm.
becoming like I think over the last we've got a pretty much completely new R&D team to where
Nice.
it was before. And over the last 6 months into the next 6 months or year, you're going to see a lot of the new stuff coming out. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of stuff come out in the last year that's kind of myself and the rest of the design team. But you'll see a lot more coming out in terms of high performance stuff as well in the next 6 months to year, which is
Nice.
super exciting. And it's a
Is that in
really
the
exciting
foiling
time.
department?
All over
Hmm.
kiting, foiling, windsurfing, everything. I mean, Nash does all the sports, but very much focused, I would say, in foiling and big air kiting are the big focuses at the moment. And wave kiting, we're working on a lot of that, and kite foiling, and the whole thing. But a lot of effort's been going into big air kiteboarding on my side, and foiling. I'm still involved with quite a bit, but the foil team is really pushing hard and got some really exciting things coming. I've been writing a lot of it for the last year, and it's starting to already launch. We've got stuff
Hmm.
coming out right now, and over the next year, I think people are going to be really impressed with what's coming out.
That's sick, man. I think also having that global approach. I mean, if you design everything in Maui, every day is 25 knots plus there. So
Yeah,
obviously, whatever you create for Maui might not work in other pockets of the world. Do you think that you drew a lot of other perspectives by having this global team now and being able to test products all around the world a little bit more and that kind of thing as well?
100%. I mean, that was definitely back in the day. I think one kind of criticism of some of the stuff in kiteboarding was it works amazing in Maui, but the 12 meter needs work, like because you barely ever ride a 12 meter in Maui.
But that's probably the
That
kite size that you sell the most as well around the
exactly.
world. Yeah.
So that's been, I mean, that was a long time ago. There's been a lot of focus on that stuff since, but
Mm.
having that perspective of, we can send stuff to Holland to ride in a lake that's
Hmm.
like the total opposite side of
Yeah.
the spectrum of foiling or kiting or whatever than what you'd get in Maui. And the guys can be like, hey, like, we know it worked in Maui, but in the like onshore choppy lake waters,
Mm.
just it's no good. So
Yeah.
then we have to, make it a much more well-rounded product. And that's definitely helping just having a much bigger collaborative team now for all the products. It's definitely helping step it up.
Where did you guys start with the Parawing design? You said because a lot of the companies that are launching now they have paragliding background, like your designer as well. Was that the biggest influence in the design of the Parawing, or did you bring
I'd
a lot
say
of the kite
so.
surfing into it as well?
So really early days, it was like, people looking at trainer kites. It was like we obviously don't make like ram air kites other
Hmm.
than the trainer kites. So paragliding background came in a lot as well, which
Nice.
is, very similar
Yeah.
design skills. And at first we started when it was basically the pocket wing downwind like thing, and
Hmm.
we made one that this very similar to the 501 that barely went upwind, and it was like loads of power would get you up on foil, but straight downwind.
Yeah.
And you could do a downwinder with it, but that was the first one. And we're like, I think Brandon at the time was testing it a bunch, and he was like, I finally got it to go upwind.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, Brandon's like a super athlete, and he
Exactly.
just got it to go upwind. We're
Yeah.
like, okay, we need to like design this thing to go upwind better. Like that is
Yeah.
everyone's like, it needs to go upwind. A lot of people kind of think, oh, I don't really care. There's a lot of crew in Hood River that just want to go downwind on it anyway.
Hmm.
But the wing just performs better if it can go upwind well.
100%.
You can, like, if you can only go downwind to get up on foil and you have to go downwind with it, you need a lot more wind than your foil's takeoff speed, like a
Because you're
lot
just
more,
chucking it
because
downwind.
you're just
Yeah.
going straight downwind. You need to
Mm.
be able to edge against it to go upwind like a wing. You need to get up going across the wind. You can't really get up going straight downwind. It just doesn't work.
So is
So
that basically having a leading edge on it versus
yeah,
just a
basically,
parachute
it's got
vibe?
drive. It's got to have
Yeah.
drive to go forward. It's got to like be able to when you pump it, it's got to want to pull you forward and not just straight downwind as
Mm.
a dead power source. It's got to want that
Hmm.
drive forward. Another thing that was really important was when we pump it, that it pumps. A lot of them kind of pump and don't do much. We
That's
wanted it to
huge.
like have feedback and hold its shape. So not be able to collapse when you pump it, not be able to like you got to be able to be violent with it, and it
Hmm.
still holds its shape. It's still solid there. So a lot of the work was done in the profiles, adding reflex into the profile for stability,
Nice.
bridling it for stability. Having also kind of going through where we wanted it to be with the aspect ratio. There's a higher aspect will kind of go upwind better, but be less stable, have more wingspan. So you need to find the balance of that. Some of the early ones are super low aspect, which are a bit more stable and get you up easier, but they don't drive as upwind as well. They're heavier on on the handle, which is
Yep.
things that cross over to kite design, that cross over to paraglider design, all that kind of stuff. It's all very similar in terms of design ideas and all that.
You
And
said a
then,
word there that I think just I want to double click on it for a sec. The reflex, this reflex technology, what does it do to the Parawing? Like, what are the characteristics that a Parawing with that reflex technology has?
I mean, basically, it just provides stability in the profile. It's one of the big things that stopped the Parawing kind of collapsing. It is hard to
Yeah.
put a lot of that in with a single skin because you
Hmm.
can't really, like, you can put a bit in, but you can't build it in as much like you can with a full double skin.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely, given it a much more stable flying characteristic.
Yeah. I think that's
And
important because I think the second, I'm thinking about a second generation without even being a second generation, like the first launch of the BRM versus the new ones that are coming out. I think if you don't have that stability in the build, it will immediately be a little bit behind.
yeah, I mean, that stability is everything. It means you can drive upwind harder because you're
Yeah.
not going to get collapses. You're going to have a more stable platform to push on, so you can trust to like load upwind higher. You can have better low end power as well because you can pump it much harder. Like there's a
Hmm.
couple that I've used where if you pump them too hard, the leading edge just collapses in, and you really need to like use your board and pumping skills way more and just have that to like feather and have
Yeah.
a little bit of power. So stability is really important because it gives you access to just be able to push it harder. So you've got higher, better top end, better low end, better upwind ability, better stability to attack, but like
Hmm.
everything. So
Yeah.
that's really important is stability in the Parawing.
What was the hardest thing to get right when you guys were designing?
Um, I mean, obviously Matt was the most involved in this, and he spent a
Hmm.
lot of time bridling. Bridling on these things
Bridling.
is, I mean, really important, really fine. Like
Mm.
we use very, very thin bridle lines,
Hmm.
which and they're such short segments as well. Bridling on a kite is hard enough, but you're working with sections of line that are from 30 centimeters to 2 meters long at
Yeah.
times. So, changing by putting a little figure eight knot in it and changing it by 2 centimeters is only a 1% change. Whereas
Hmm.
changing a Parawing bridle line that's maybe this long and putting a 2 centimeter knot in it is like
Huge.
completely changing the ratio.
Yeah.
So Matt was spending so much time bridling,
Mm.
just getting this. I mean, so many bridle lines as well on a Parawing. You can obviously through the program get it set up to a very close place to where you want it to be, but it's all about fine tuning. Also, just testing a bunch of different profiles, depths, aspect ratios, trying to find what worked best. And then also, we had to make sure that, Matt was getting really good at some of them
Hmm.
and riding them really well, but he was, Parawinging every day and he was really good at it.
Yeah.
And he's a great foiler, young guy, talented. So then you need to also, a hard thing is making sure that you go back and test it with someone that
Normal people.
can't, normal people,
Yeah.
someone that's like gonna struggle and has
Yeah.
ridden other ones and then sometimes we like think we're close, like and then be like, no, we tested it with this guy and he was like having a struggle with whatever. And then we're like, okay, so we need to fix that. We need to move like to, and then we need to get to the point where we get the random person on the beach and they're like,
Hmm.
whoa, this is way easier than the other thing I've tried,
Yeah.
which is
Nice.
when we felt like, okay, we're ready now. I
Hmm.
mean, we've been messing with these things for almost a year now, about a year now. And the aim was originally to get it out a little sooner. I think we're still going to be quite early on the market in terms of the big brands, especially.
Hmm.
Um, but it had to be ready. It had to be a
Yeah.
really good product. And
Yeah.
obviously
100%.
V2, V3 will come and we're going to keep improving. But this one's to the point where it goes upwind well, it's stable, it's robust, you know, a, it's a solid product that anyone's going to be able to Parawing on and have a great time.
That's awesome, man. I think that testing it with, like you said, the average foiler on the beach is so important. And if you were to give your Parawing the morph to someone who's just starting out Parawing, what do you think are the best characteristics that it's coming with?
I mean, it's got a pulley system that Matt spent a lot of time with, which basically just gives it more range and stability. He's tried with and without. He's tried different bridle setups with it, without it, and the pulley just makes it it just makes it more stable. I mean, it's gonna kind of position itself better, be able to react to gusts and inputs better, and kind of keep itself in the power zone better. I think and the upwind ability is really good because of the stability that it gives. I think that is a huge thing. It's got all the things that we've seen other people struggle with, like color coded bridle lines, color coded leading edge. So, I mean, a lot of the times your Parawing can end up in a bit of a mess in front of you,
All the
and
time.
you're like, yeah, you ride over it with your foil, and you need to try and get it out and make sure it's the right way up, and
Mm,
especially when you're like, once you've stowed it and you're trying to redeploy it, you
yeah,
got to know you're throwing it the right way up, because if you throw it leading edge down, you're just like
you're gonna cop it. Yeah,
smash it. Yeah, it's not going to be that fun. So there's all those things that you only really learn once. I mean, it's such an early sport, so you only really learn if you're doing it, and experiencing the downfalls of other ones or the downfalls of our early prototypes. You got to go through the process to make sure you're getting the product that you're gonna. We want to experience all the things ourselves and not have the customers experience all those shitty things. So
yeah. Well, I
yeah,
remember you experienced a few of those when we were here, when you were here down this summer, just going downwind, and you had it stashed in your rashi, and you were like, I hope like I don't have to use this again because it's a mess in there. But
exactly. I was just stuffing it in and just being like, I don't want to fall. I'm gonna make sure I make this down window because I don't know what's inside here right now. It's just a mess.
yeah,
And
and
like, you want to be able to like not be thinking that. You want to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna grab this thing out. A lot of it's technique as well. Like, you can't build a Parawing that, well, yet the packs up nicely and goes into your top pocket and is ready to come out. Like, that's up to the customer to figure out
yeah,
what their technique is of stashing it. I mean, obviously we'll be coming out with some instructional things and tips and
hmm
all that, but that's up to you to do a good job of sewing it. Um, but you want it to make it as easy to redeploy as possible as well. I think stowing it's not the hard bit as much. I mean, you got to be able to stow it while you're on foil and still focus on not coming off foil.
yeah, comes with
But
time.
redeploying, you need to pack it up well, so then when you redeploy it, it's good as well, because that's when things get a bit messy.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Are you guys coming out with some solution for that stowing as well? There's a lot of
Yeah,
belts
we've got
out
a belt
there.
belt coming out that's like just a little kangaroo pouch kind of thing. It's right in front of you, easy to stow, easy to. We've got like a nice place to strap the handle to, and all
That's
that
cool.
to keep it kind of separate, so you can, yeah, easily, put it away, keep the lines nice, and keep it out your way, so you don't feel like you've got anything, and easily
Nice.
get it back out.
I think that's really big. I think we haven't seen yet a belt. There's some kind of crowdsourced options at the moment that you can get on Etsy to clip
Yeah.
a bar into, which I felt were really interesting because once you clip the bar and you're stowing it, you kind of avoid having any tangled into lines because if you just have it in your hands, ultimately that thing will start to get into a big mess. But once you have the bar clipped and you stow, there's nothing that can happen to the line. So that's really cool for the belt.
Yeah.
And I think also the one thing that I felt was really useful is if the belt has a little clip for your leash. So you don't have to
Mhm.
wear a waist leash as well. Is that something that's going to be incorporated with it?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, those are really good things that I think will be a huge improvement already on the belts that we
Yeah.
have in the
I actually
market.
personally never use a leash for my Parawing, but I guess
Not for the pairwing, more for the board. I mean, like if
oh,
you
right.
have,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, instead of your waist leash, you mean
yeah,
for your board. Yeah. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So you're not chucking two things around your waist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what sizes are the morphs coming out with? Like, are you going to have an initial launch with some sizes, or is it just going to be every size straight away?
So it's gonna be 2, 3, 4, 5. And I
Two, three,
think
four, five.
initially it's 3, 4, 5,
Mm-hmm.
and the two's coming out very shortly after. So I know a lot of brands are launching with just one size because they just want to hit the market.
Yeah.
We've got like 3, 4, 5 is pretty much what 90% of people need. So that's what we're launching with straight away.
And do you feel you can go a little bit wider in between the sizes because of that bridle or the pulley system? Because you have a little bit more range. I see a lot of brands having very
Yeah,
little
I mean
steps.
it's yeah, for sure. A lot of brands are like, I think that's. I mean, I've seen a couple of the brands launch them, but they actually don't even have they've got one size available or something, even though
Yeah.
they've said they've got 5 sizes or 6 sizes coming. But yeah, I'd say so. I mean, most people would get away with just a 4 meter, for example. Like if I just had
Hmm.
one, it would be a 4 meter. Same with winging. If I just had one, it'd be a 4 meter. Obviously depends on where you live and what your conditions are like. I mean, I know a lot of people in Europe, like 5, 6, 7 meter wings are the most popular wing sizes.
Hmm.
Whereas, I kind of go between Hood River and Maui and Melbourne, where, a 4 meter will do you. I mean, in Maui, a 3 meter, 2 meter will do you
Yeah.
a lot of the days of the parawinging. So I do feel like the range obviously helps. I would say the range is not more that you can have a bigger split. It's more
Hmm.
that you like, because the sweet spot of a two that has no range is still going to be
Hmm.
the same sweet spot as a two that has a huge range. So you're still going to have like a 3 and a 5, for example, or a 3 and a 4. But I think the main thing that is when you get on the water, if the wind changes, you're not getting blown off the water instantly. Some of the
That's pretty
early ones
big.
I've ridden, they're like, okay, I can get up in 18 knots, and by 20 knots, I'm maxed.
Yeah.
Like, no D power. No, like,
Mm.
all of a sudden, it just becomes unruly and scary, and you can only go downwind because you just have to stow it, basically. If you try and edge upwind on it. I remember we did one together from the Green Point to Frankston, and the wind was a bit offshore, so we had to cut quite left, like two left to just foil downwind left. It was like pretty hard left. And at times I was
Hmm.
trying to like go upwind on that thing, and it was like gusting 30 knots, and it was just impossible. I was like barely even to go. I was actually going better upwind, stowed with my Parawing, just pumping upwind and taking waves left than I could actually holding the thing. It was just so much power. So
Yeah.
now with the range, it's like those windy days come in and you can hang it off the front lines and like basically be
Hmm.
dumping all the power and still got wind. So that's
Yeah.
super important, because at the start it was, I mean, even now with most of them, like on a sinker board, for example, you need 18 knots on a 4 meter, and then as I said, 20 knots you're maxed. So with R1, you've got a little bit better low end because of the stability, and then you can really take it like, I don't know, maybe 17 to 25, 6, 7 knots going upwind like quite easily.
Yeah. I think, yeah, look, it's so hard with the Parawing. You need so much power to get up, and then once you're up, you don't want any of that power anymore. So
Yeah.
being able to tweak that on the fly would be really cool. I don't like I what I've been doing is just sliding the B lines a little bit further down in the bar, which gives me a little bit D
Mhm.
power, but it also kind
Yeah.
of compromises the responsiveness of the Parawing, and it's just fluttery.
Yeah.
So basically,
Yeah.
you're
It's
just
not how
kind
it was
of
designed.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can hold on to it, but it's not comfortable. So I think that's a huge kind of area that the parents will get so much better in.
I mean, for example, like foil kites have a lot of D power. I mean, when I was racing foil kites years ago, I'd be on a 18-meter kite in 18 knots. Like, the amount of power you can hold with those things. I mean, granted, you've got a proper bar and proper harness and all that kind of stuff, but still, it's like you'd be maxed on a 4 meter power, 5 meter power wing, and the same wind that you'd be on an 18-meter kite. So the technology's there; it's going to get there. I hope it doesn't turn into literal like little
Racing.
mini like kite setups with a bar and everything, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, kiting sucks, but I'm really into this." It's like.
Well, that's kiting, bro.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I do think that kiting is still like kite foiling. I still love kite foiling. I think there's still a lot of things there that have benefits that other things don't have. I think it's kind of been a little bit forgotten art, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, I think I'm about to sneeze any second, but
Yeah, seize away. I totally believe in that, man. I was talking to the distributor for Fly Surfer here, and I was saying that maybe the Parawing, like if you look at the evolution of how things go, kite surfing taking over wind surfing back in the day, and then winging kind of gobbling up kite surfing, and then we have Parawinging coming out, and people will have their first introductions to lines and flying something,
Mhm.
which if they stagnate in that sport, they'll be like, what's next? It's going to be kite surfing for them. If they haven't done
Yeah.
that before, it will bring them back into kite surfing, which is like this full circle. And I, like you, man, I still love kite foiling, going out there when it's light, and I still strap and do boost and all that
Yeah.
stuff, because I just, if I'm on a kite, I want to jump. I don't do any other form of kiting, but it opens up a lot. And I think you bring a lot of your kiting skills into parawinging as well. I think you've been flying a kite since 14, like you said. What kind of skills and qualities that you have as a kiter that you can bring into parawinging that will help you learn how to parawing, for example?
Yeah, Parawing works a lot more like a kite than a wing, obviously. I've seen some really good foilers online and in person try and learn how to Parawing who don't kite. And it's like, whoa, like, I thought these guys were good. And
It's
then you
just
see,
that
like,
instinct, right, of what to do in the bar when it's not doing what you want it to do. I think
yeah, and
kiters
how
just
to,
kind of like, okay, this is where it
yeah,
responses. Yeah.
exactly. Like, I flew it for the first time and was just like, oh, I got this. This is fine. Like,
Mm,
it's just a kite. Um, and I've yeah again seen some really good foilers struggle, and then I've seen like some friends who are good foilers who kited in the past haven't been kiting as much lately because they're just super into foiling, and then power winging they're like, oh, I got it way quicker than my friends because I
yeah.
kited. They're like all
Yeah.
these years of dealing with lines and just knowing
Hmm.
like not freaking out when you get a little tangle because you've dealt with a million tangles in your
Yeah.
life,
Spaghetti's life.
and
Yeah.
that thing, yeah, things like that, and just dealing with that whole thing is,
Mm,
as a kiter, for sure, like, I think the biggest thing. I'd say also being able to adapt between, like, a lot of people who do maybe one or two foil disciplines. Like, I think windsurf foiling is probably the only foiling I haven't done. And
mm,
I think just being able to adapt between prone, sup, wing, kite, whatever, um, and being able to adapt between them all definitely helps you learn a new one a lot easier because
100%.
you can balance with whatever in your hand or nothing in your hand or a paddle in your hand or a
Mm,
D-board or like a 7'8" SUP or a 80 centimeter kite foil board. Like, you
yeah.
can deal with whatever. So when I got on the Parawing, you're just like, oh, oh, it's just a kite. I just
Yeah.
pump the shit out of it and oh, away we go.
And it unlocks the discipline a lot quicker. Like, if you think about it, if you break down like how a parawing works, you have to have the balance on the board. If you know how to wing, cool, you can like stand up on a board and have that, that balance. If you know how to kite, you kind of understand going upwind, where you want, the
Yeah.
parawing to be positioned in the wind range window and all that stuff. And then when you get rid of it, it's proning and downwinding. You know how to read the bumps and where the energy is. So if you do all that stuff, the parawing will come to you in like a day, right?
Yeah,
But if you don't
exactly.
have those disciplines and you have to build a skill that you're lacking in any of those areas, just be patient with it, because it'll come, but don't expect success straight away, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like anything, experience helps. And also, I think with the power wing, a lot of people just jump in the water with it. Like, definitely, at least 10 minutes of ground handling goes a long way, figuring
Yeah,
out what
tell
it's
us
gonna
about that.
do.
Like, you what are the things that people should do when, they first get their morph, take it out of the bag? What do you do with it?
I'd say, I mean, at least 10 minutes on the beach. Like, a lot of people are just like, give me that thing, I'm gonna go in the water. And you're like, oh, fly it on the beach for a second first. And it's like, just being able to know how to steer it from one side of the window to the other and know how to dump the power, know how to stow it if you want to, know
Hmm.
how to like if you're crashed on it on the water and it's upside down, know how to like use your one hand to like get the leading edge up, and while you're kind of pumping the other side, like all these
Hmm.
little skills and bits and pieces that you can't, like, you'll just get frustrated otherwise. So I'd say definitely just ground handle it for a while. I mean, learn how to like run downwind with it, like hold it in the
Yeah.
power, run downwind like you're simulating a jibe going with the wind, and figure out how it jibes. Because if you're just riding along with your power wing like this, full powered, and you go for a jibe, just ride straight towards it, you're just gonna ride straight into it, and it's
You're gonna
just so
wear
you
it.
need to like you need to like swing it out to one side and then like bring it through the window as you like do your jibe to keep the apparent wind and the Parawing the whole time, because
Hmm.
it's not an inflated structure. It needs air pressure to keep it, inflated.
You need
And
to
if
fly
you
it.
ride
It needs
straight
input,
towards
yeah.
it and the wind comes from the back, it's just a mess instantly. So you need to kind of you can learn that by running on the beach, by
Hmm.
like running upwind a little bit, running downwind like you're doing a jibe, and then running back upwind the other way and just fly the thing through the window as you do it, things like that. Because you want to be able to, I mean, no one's going to be a beginner foiler learning to Parawing right now, at least. I'm
Yeah.
sure in the future it's going to be people just straight up learning on Parawings. But right now, I wouldn't say there's much point in going Parawinging until you can jibe comfortably on your wing and ride both
Yeah.
ways.
Just
Like,
knowing how to
I'd say,
foil. You don't want to learn
yeah,
how to
you
foil and
you don't want to be
manage the
learning how
foil.
to exactly. It is a little trickier than winging right now. I'd say if you're
Hmm.
a complete beginner foiler and you're thinking, do I wing or Parawing? I'd say right now you probably want to wing. It's just less to deal with. It's an easier beginner tool. Winging still has many benefits, but so you're going to want to be able to jibe for sure before
Hmm.
you learn to Parawing. So then you want to learn how to jibe on the beach first, just so you know how it works, and that's a pretty important thing, I would say. You don't need to be able to tack or anything, um, but you want to be able to jibe because you want to be able to keep foiling while you're out there and just know what the thing's going to do. And for sure, you're going to probably, even if you do it on the beach and it works, you're probably going to go out and crash your first few jibes. But at least you'll have a better idea first on the beach. There's no consequences of,
Yeah.
you know, bending it or whatever.
Yeah, and I think when you're flying the parawing on the beach, you're like, oh God, I got heaps here, and then
Mhm.
even choosing your parawing is good to fly it on the beach, because as soon as you hit the water and you launch that thing, boom, like you're going downwind and you're losing a lot of that power that you felt on land. So
Yeah.
just understanding those things, understanding what sizes to go out in, and just being more, in tune with your gear. For example, I get on the beach. Every time I get on the beach, I just get the 3 because I like the size, and I just fly
Mhm.
it. And I know, fine, I need the 4, or what do I need for that session? It's a good little benchmark for me when I just fly it a little bit. That's cool, man. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, you guys have a awesome group of pro riders at Naish. Like, who's really frothing on the parawing right now?
I think everyone who foils is pretty excited to get their hands on one.
Yeah.
Obviously, most people around the world still don't have access to one, even if they want one. There's not
Yep.
many available. There's not many out there. I don't know the exact numbers, but I wouldn't imagine there's more than 2,000 Parawings in existence right now.
Yeah. Not
And
sure.
there's a whole lot more than 2,000 foilers in the world and people that
Yeah.
want to do it. So I'd say most of our foil team super excited about it, especially the foilers that are into riding swell.
Mm.
So downwind foilers. We've got Luca Pito, who's from Mauritius, who foils a lot on like solid point break waves out there. He wants to get on it
I'd
super
love
bad.
to see him do that.
We got Rowdy, who you know as well. He's
Yep.
very, very passionate kite foiler, but he's pretty excited to kind of start his downwind journey. He really
Yeah.
wants to downwind with it. That's what he
Oh,
wants to
he's
do with
gonna
it.
jump the
Is
whole paddle thing, isn't he? He's not even gonna touch that.
Yeah, he's thinking about learning to SUP because of the challenge. But I think that's also one thing with the Parawing is a lot of people have been holding out and supping because they've heard how hard it is to SUP downwind foil.
Mm.
And like Parawinging is a whole lot easier than SUP downwind foiling. Like, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are now going to be like, "Oh, finally, I don't need to learn how to SUP. I can just use a Parawing
100%.
and like just skip that whole thing." Which it's hard to SUP downwind foiling. Is a rewarding process, but I'd probably be in a similar boat if I didn't learn to SUP
Oh,
downwind
dude,
foil
I
right
would have
now and
never.
Parawinging's coming out. You'd just be like, this is it. Like,
I would have
why am
jumped
I going to
it.
SUP?
It
Yeah.
took me a good 6 to 8 months to dial in paddling and learning
Yeah.
how to paddle and be comfortable, like going out knowing that I wasn't going to eat it.
Yeah. And I do think supping's still going to have its place. There's the one downside about downwind power winging that you need to be aware of if you are going out on a mission is if the wind dies, you're not getting back up. Whereas supping, the wind dies, there's still swell. 95% of the time. If you're in a
Hmm.
place with super short fetch, maybe if the wind dies, it's going flat pretty quick. Majority of the time, if you're going out SUP downwind foiling, you've gone out because it's been blowing for a while and there's some swell picked up. And if that
Hmm.
wind drops, there's still going to be swell for enough time to get you back to shore.
Yeah,
Also,
to get
you're
your pattern.
generally on a much bigger board, so you're safer out there. You've got some
Mm.
flotation. If I'm parawinging, most of the time I'm on a 50-liter board, and if the wind dies under 15 knots even, I'm pretty stranded. So you
Yeah.
kind of want to be checking the forecast, making sure you know, like, okay, I'm good, and not going out. We had a couple of missions this summer in Melbourne down the surf coast where at least we knew the wind wasn't dying, but we were out there. And if the
Yeah.
wind died on that little board, like you're having a bad time.
Yeah, and it doesn't even
So
matter. Like, and some people are packing bigger Parawings with them, but if
mm,
it's 12 knots and you're on a sinker, you're not going to get up even on a 5. You're not.
no chance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
worth
you
saying
do need to
that.
be a bit cautious, yeah, about
Yeah,
that
you don't
stuff.
want
And
to.
I think yeah, that's where sapping has definitely still got its place. It's
Mm,
definitely a little more reliable. There's even in Hood River in the gorge, there's like some downwinders that we do where there's periods where the river bends and the wind's gone,
yeah.
where you can still kind of make it work with the sap and feel confident. Um, but I mean, I guess it's the same with winging. Like the
Yeah.
wings, if you're on a 4 meter wing and it drops to 12 knots, you're not going anywhere. So it's similar thing. The wings may be slightly more helpful in terms of it floats,
As a safety
but
thing.
as a safety thing, but still
Yeah.
not really. The Parawing, I mean, it flies in very little wind because it's so
Mm,
light, so you can kind of sit and putt in on your board quite easily on a Parawing as well. If you can't get back up, but for sure, sapping's still going to have a place. But I do think that Parawinging is going to take a lot of people away from downwind sap foiling over the next year, over this year. I
yeah.
would say like there's a lot of people that still haven't tried it again because of the access thing or the don't want to be a kook again kind of thing. But at least personally for me, I'm like I'll Parawing over sapping 9 out of 10 times now.
Yeah. The same. It's just a better experience because you don't have anything to hold on. Feels more
Yeah,
free. I'm
you're
pushing my
on
turn so
tiny
much more
board.
now.
Mhm.
Smaller board, smaller foil, and I feel like if there's enough wind, I don't really care about my falls. Like when I'm sup paddling downwind, I feel like I'm riding at 80% because if I'm on a small foil, I'm like, if I fall, this might be 20
Yeah,
minutes to get up again.
yeah,
And on the Parawing, I'm like, I don't care. Like I'll get up and I'll pop it
mm,
up like a kite and just boom, you're up again.
yeah,
And you don't have the paddle to do any pump paddle, so I think you get really good at reading the waves, trying to do turns to build that speed. So I think my riding improved as well with the paddling.
yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. Like what we mentioned safety a little bit. I think it's always useful to talk a little bit about safety briefly because we don't want to be telling people to go out 3 kilometers into the ocean on a parawing and then they get skunked. But one big thing that a lot of people talk about is leashing your parawing to yourself. What are your views on that?
My views are, I mean, I'd say it's unnecessary. Maybe some of the Parawings that you see that are full double skin, you might want to leash up to them because
Mm,
it's not going to sink the minute it hits the water. It's going to hold pressure a bit more. You could pop it and like let it go and it could go. A single skin Parawing, you let it go, it's going down into the water and it's not going anywhere.
yeah,
Like
it
it
sticks.
is, you're gonna always be able to paddle on your board faster than your your Parawing is in the water. Obviously, still wear a leash to your board always with when you've got a
Hmm.
foil. Some people don't. I do not see why you wouldn't leash to your foil board. The foil if it's windy, the foil is just gonna point the board straight downwind and it's just gonna go. Um, you're never going to swim faster than a foil board in 25 knots. Like, there's no
No,
way.
it's gone.
But with the Parawing, I mean, the leash kind of gets in the way a little bit. It's especially for stowing, it gets in the way. And I just personally don't see the need for it. It's not like a wing that's going to blow away. Maybe when spots start getting crazy busy and stuff like that, you might see people want to like leash up so you know, have
Don't get
straight
run over.
Parawings, but in general, it's pretty unnecessary. It feels a little unnervy when you're out there like way offshore and you don't have a leash to your thing. But I've
But you
tried
get
so
used
many
to
times,
it.
like you get used to it, and
Yeah.
honestly, it never really rips out your hand anyway. Like
Mm.
you can just slide your hand to the bottom of the handle and it's full dump, like no power whatsoever instantly.
Yeah.
And if you're holding the bottom bridle set, like it can't power up. It's just not. And as soon as it hits the water, it's just a wet shopping bag in the water. It's not doing
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
I don't find leashes necessary. I think it's just going to get in the way, and you've already got the lines are a bit of a thing to just steer clear of, and another leash is not really going to help that. So that's my personal view on it.
I agree
Yeah,
with that. Maybe if you are a beginner, your first 3 sessions, maybe chuck a little carabiner or something on the brake lines if you want
exactly.
to, just to have that reassurance. But I think ultimately you will eventually not have it there.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you guys see like the morphing? Here we go. Into different kind of like snowboarding and skateboarding. Like, do you think it's going to go onto land as well?
Yeah, I think on the snow, there's some benefits. I think snow kites still far outweigh just the fact that if you're using it to like tow up a hill, for example, it
Mm,
is gonna burn your arms out quite quick. Like you need a lot of pull to pull you up a hill.
yeah,
Um, where a kite is still beneficial to that. I'm sure you can go up and it would be cool to be able to just blast up a hill
that'd be
and then
awesome.
stow it and snowboard down.
Mm,
But if you're going for a proper run uphill, you snowboard downhill so quick that you'd probably want to go quite far up, and then you may as well go with a kite and just land it at the top and
pack
pack
it.
it. It
Yeah.
takes a couple of minutes, and then you can smash down and you can get uphill so easy after again. I obviously don't snow kite too much. Skateboarding, I think it's like winging, like kind of
Mm,
a little bit of a novelty thing, cool to learn some moves.
yeah,
On a
good practice.
skateboard is really good practice for learning to tack and jibe on a wing and
Hmm.
just like actually I think it's a really good way to learn how to wing. Like a lot of people who've never winged before can wing skate first try
Yeah, yeah.
and really get the feel of how wing works. I actually think I'm surprised wing schools don't do that more. Maybe they do. I don't know. I've never worked at a wing school, but I feel like it would be a pretty good way.
Oh, it
Maybe a
helps
little
heaps.
dangerous, but
Yeah.
you can just take it slow and go. And if you're in like a really like Princess Pier that we have back
Yeah.
home, like the perfect concrete,
Oh, it's so nice.
no little stones or anything to trip you up on, then it's really good. But I mean, I think it really works best with a foil. Like I don't really see all like the whole thing with foiling and winging being able to work is because foils are so low drag that you don't
Hmm.
burn your arms out. As soon as you're on any other type of board on the water, there's too much drag on your board. You need a harness at that point,
Yeah,
and you need a like a big sail
a
like
powerful thing.
windsurfing or
Yeah.
a kite like to be able to overpower that and go upwind properly, and your arms just can't hang on otherwise.
Mm.
So I think it's gonna, at least for a little bit, stick with foiling, but I mean I'm sure they're gonna morph into different styles and disciplines and race wings and like specific downwind ones and
Hmm.
specific beginner ones and all that kind of stuff. It's coming for sure.
Let's talk boards for a second, man. I think you mentioned that when you were down here, you had a 50-liter board, which to me is still tough to get up on. Is it the Chimera? Chimera? How do you pronounce that?
Chimera, yeah.
Chimera. I'm looking here at the website. The 5'8"
So
by.
I had a prototype, the one that's coming out soon. So I didn't have I think the current 50-liter one is five
Mm,
eight, yeah.
yeah, the 5'8".
Um, so mine was a little different. It's a 5'3".
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, to me, the benefit of it is not riding a SUP, obviously, riding something smaller. The 50 liters pushing it for sure. I need good technique, good wind. The reason I like using that is because it's a board that I can do multiple disciplines on. I can prone foil it pretty well. I'm actually quite enjoying the mid length kind of thing for prone foiling. It's not too big because it's 5'3". It's not super chunky and it's quite narrow and thin.
Good to travel with as well for the one
Yeah,
board.
so for the one board thing for prone foiling, it's great. I did a few when I was in South Africa. I did a few prone downwinders, and it was good for that.
Sick.
Also, just having a slightly bigger board if you do mess up out offshore. Like I wasn't going too far out because prone downwinding, you are literally not getting back up because it's impossible.
Just like a shore runner kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's like just at the back of the waves. It was pretty big swell, pretty tough. I did one or two that were really sick, and you'd like be able to come in. It was nuking at Cape Town. It's 35 knots, so there's really great swell and waves, so you could duck into the actual waves, surf some, go back out, get the wind swell. And then I tried the third day, and it was like 4 or 5 foot like actual wet breaking swell. I just couldn't get out. There's just no way. Like I couldn't take off. I could get out the back, but I couldn't take off on the big waves.
Yeah.
And they were kind of closing out, so I'd take off on one, it was just white water, wall
Dump,
out,
yeah.
and I just couldn't pump out. And I got Katie, my girlfriend, dropped me, and she was going to pick me up at the other end. And I luckily had my Apple Watch, and after about an hour of trying, I'm like, "Can you pick
Still
me up?"
here.
She's like, "Yeah, I'm at the end." I'm like, "No, I'm still at the start." I never made it. It was kind of a bit disappointing, bit demoralizing, but I just love that size board because I can do a lot of things on it. I think in general, if I was just Parawing, I'd go a little bigger, maybe 60, high 50s, because I mean, I'd say an advanced foiler, so I can make it work. I'd say about 78, 80 kilos. So it works. Also, that shape, obviously longer, narrower, is
It
going
looks
to get
really
you up
good.
easier. It's a really great shape for building speed easy. As soon as I get it to even close to the surface, I'm off. Whereas like a traditional kind of wingboard shape that's shorter and fatter, 50
Yeah.
meters is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Um,
That's worth mentioning because I'm looking at the lineup here, and you have the hover downwind crossover that starts at 85 liters. That's a sick board to start on.
That's that 85 liters for someone my weight, 80 kilos roughly. The 85 liter is a perfect Parawing board. It's not a big SUP. It floats you, but it's got quite good length. I think it's like 6 foot something.
6'4". I'm looking at here. This looks really good as the one quiver for Parawinging. Like the 6'4", it's a little thick, 5 1/4. But that's not too bad. Mine is 6 1/8, which is so thick, and I'm not too keen on it. But that's because the width is around 19 for the Naish one, and mine is 18, which I would recommend. I think I'm actually going to get something a little wider for my next one.
Yeah, I mean, I think around 20, 19 inches is good. Like any narrower, you're starting to lose the balance. They're starting to not be very good in chop when you're trying to get up on a super narrow board. When you're pointing against the chop, like the wind's blowing this way and you're trying to start this way, a narrow board gets so tippy.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
If you're trying to, I've done like a bunch of wing up, pat down, downwinders on my SUP board, and getting up on that SUP board, you'd think 110 liter SUP board easy. If it's flat water or not much swell, super easy to get up. As soon as you're in swell, trying to ride it sideways against the swell, under 20 inches, it starts getting pretty difficult. But I'd say, definitely, like you can Parawing on a kind of standard wingboard for sure, but even for winging, narrower and longer is becoming kind of the trend. It's easier to get up with. The narrower width helps you bank turns over better without dipping your rail, and just generally better, I would say.
Yeah. What are the conditions that are you? Well, you're in Hood River, so your conditions are just absolutely mint for a big part of the year.
I have done most of my Parawinging in Melbourne though, so which is also honestly Melbourne's pretty good for foiling and winding.
No, we had a sick summer, man. We had such good conditions this summer.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I didn't let you finish the question.
No, I was going to ask, this is coming from a very kind of selfish question for myself, because I'm going to Hood River in the middle of the year, and we had a chat. We were like an hour on the phone the other day, and I was like, oh, we should have recorded this, because the amount of tips that you gave for someone who is going to Hood River for the first time, what to pack, what foils to bring, like what should someone who wants to experience Hood River for the first time bring in terms of, let's start with the foils maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Hood River's definitely known for those crazy nuking days where the swell
Mm.
is just huge, and sure that happens, but it's not the everyday. Hood River can be any wind strength, like from light, steady 12 knot breezes to 50 knot, just mega smoke on the water type days, like insane. So you do get a bit of everything. The good thing about Hood River is you've got the current running against the wind, so the swell kind of picks up a lot easier than most places. A little easier to get going on foil, and the swell is generally steeper than most places as well.
Shorter period.
It's yeah, much shorter period than like open
Mm.
ocean, and yeah, just it's different to ride. It's really rippable swell because it is a little steeper and not moving very fast. You can really
Hmm.
commit to turns, and it's really quite easy to read in most places too. Whereas open ocean, it's a little harder to read, and it's more about keeping up with swell and
Yeah, right.
reading it and playing this game of like chess where you're trying to plan your next move constantly in the ocean and just make it.
Yeah.
Whereas Hood River, it's so predictable and you're literally only looking for sections to turn on. At least I am. Like you just
Yeah.
that's what you're planning next is where the best section to turn is rather than like just keeping going. Like you
Mm.
don't need to think too much about keeping going in Hood River. But
Yeah.
I'd say generally bigger foils work because it is slower.
Mm.
You can ride a bigger foil, which once you get used to, I actually really like riding bigger foils. You can lean into them harder. You can recover things a lot easier, so you can kind of go for like bigger wing outs,
Yeah.
stuff like that, because you can recover. So I ride pretty much just an 840 and a 1040 all summer. On the big days, I can take the 640, but as I'm not trying to race, I don't really get much out of that.
Yeah.
And then the 1040 I'm really liking for most days from 12 knots to 20 knots. And
Hmm.
then if it's under like 18 knots, the 840 becomes more work than
Yeah, you're
the
pumping a
the
bit.
gain that I get from the turning ability. And honestly, like I can't turn as hard on an 840 in lighter winds because I have to think about a little more about getting on the next piece of swell and
Mm.
pumping. Whereas on the 1040, I can recover way easier. I can take smaller bits of swell and I can then just turn hard and not think about where am I going to get my next bit of energy from.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good quiver to 840, 1040
Are those high
aspect
aspect?
ratio.
High
The
yeah.
aspect around the 1040 is about 8.9 or so, and the
Hmm.
840 is 9.7.
Yeah. So not super high aspect, slower, surfier gear.
Yeah, you don't need super high aspect in Hood River. There's just not much point. Honestly, I think around 9 aspect ratio is kind of a sweet spot there. If you want to turn and surf, you don't. It's so easy to keep going there. You don't need crazy high efficiency. Turning is way more fun and important in
Yeah.
Hood River.
What about mass size? I see a lot of people like with the Parawing being able to go a little bit longer with their
Yeah,
mass, which is interesting.
I started winging because I kite foiled on a 95 and even 105 for a while, and then I went down to 95 for everything for winging and kiting, and I winged on the 95 for quite a long time, and I always thought 85 was super short. Then, when I was more into prone foiling on the 75, I didn't want to take too much, so I
Mm.
sacrificed an 85, and my kite foiling's gone a lot from powered speed riding to more flashy surfy kind of style, so I've gone
Yeah.
down in mass size to 85 on that mostly as well,
Nice.
which gives you better, shorter mass, definitely let you turn harder. You've got a lower center of gravity, bit more stability. And so Parawing are mostly on the 85, I think.
Hmm.
Sapping, I'm on the 75 because lower drag, easier to get up. Same thing, I actually find I can turn better on the 75
Yeah.
just because you're lower again. You have to be a little bit more cautious of your wingtips and your height on a 75. But I'm really liking the 75 actually a lot, which I never thought I would. So basically, you could, yes, anywhere 75, 85. I don't think 95 is necessary.
Yeah, it's a little long. Definitely a little long. I just have the 80. I'm using 80
Yeah,
for everything, and
yeah,
I just don't want to spend money on another mast. And if
yeah. I
I
mean,
were to
80's a
get,
great all-rounder.
yeah, if I were to get two, then I would have to go 75, 85 to make it worthwhile. So I'm just sticking with 80,
Yeah,
even for
yeah,
kite
for
foiling,
sure.
which is whatever. Cool, man. Look, I'm really looking forward to going to Hood River for the first time, hanging around with you guys. Is Katie getting into parawinging as well?
She really wants to. She tried a bit of sapping last year and got up a few times, but never really committed to any proper runs or anything because you don't want to get
Hmm.
stuck. And she was a little reluctant because she was having fun winging and would like go sapping and just be struggling. Whereas if she was winging, she'd be having a good time.
Mm.
She got some runs by the end of summer, but now Parawings, she's like, this is like, make sure you put one aside for me somewhere. Like, I
Yeah.
need one of these things. Like, she's like most people, like all the people at Nash who wing and maybe dabbled in sapping. They're so hyped that we've got the Parawing. They're just like that. Like, finally, I don't need to worry about learning sapping anymore.
Mm.
This is it. This is my thing. Like, this is what I've
I
been
think that's
waiting
what the
for,
whole
kind of
market
thing.
is saying, man. That's
Yeah.
a common feeling I hear every time from all the wingers, and that's just such a huge market right now that will start tapping into this new form of foiling. So, thanks to Nash, man, for putting out a lot of effort into it, getting out quick, getting the development right, and launching the morph. Thank you for sending me one as well. I can't wait for it to arrive. I'm frothing right now
Yeah.
to get it
Can't
and
wait
get.
to see you out there.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be good, and I'll bring some toys over to Hood River so we can have a session there and have some time together, which will be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it'll be sick.
All
Looking
right, Ewan,
forward
thanks
to
so
it.
much, man. We'll definitely touch base towards the end of the year, man. There's going to be so much different things to talk about then. But for now, thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. And looking forward to writing your stuff.
Yeah, good to chat and look forward to more Parawing content.
All right, man. See ya.
Cheers. Bye.